Today I'll be talking about Australia's environment, Australia's research environment for battery-based technology, in particular lithium-ion battery-based technology. So it's not a research talk; it's more a talk from the Australian Battery Society, right? So I've got that hat on at the moment. I'm just going to share my screen, and we'll go from there. All right, can you see my screen, my PowerPoint?
Yeah, we can see clearly.
All right, fantastic. And hopefully you can see the PowerPoint. So yeah, today I'll be talking about a brief snapshot of Australia's battery-based research and industry. Okay, so we're going to go through how we start off with minerals, and a lot of the questions you just asked from Dr. Reddy is very similar, and so I'll address a few of those questions in the presentation. So from Australia's perspective, as opposed to Canada's. So I'd like to start off by thanking, acknowledging the traditional owners of Australia, the Aboriginal people, and basically we're visitors to their land, and I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to elders, past, present, and future. So today I'll be talking about what is the Australian Battery Society, how we became, the lithium-ion battery value chain, Australia's capabilities in terms of research, some companies that you might have heard of or might not have heard of that are making a splash in this space, government indicators of support, and the role of the Battery Society to actually encourage more battery-based research, development, manufacture here in Australia. So we're the Australian Battery Society. We were incorporated in 2020, so we're fairly new. And we started off because we're hosting the international meeting in lithium batteries next week, right? So if you're wanting to come, please do come. There's still time to register. You can register online and participate online. There's lots of opportunities to do that. We have a stellar cast of speakers. Essentially, when we organized this conference, we realized that there wasn't a place for battery researchers, developers, government to go to in Australia to actually talk to each other, to come up with plans, policies, to actually engage each other. And so what we did was we thought, okay, we've got this conference, we've got this fantastic conference, we've got this opportunity to create something more than just a conference. We have the opportunity to create legacy. And what we want the Australian Battery Society to be is a legacy for this, where we can connect people, right? And so if you look at the context, you've just heard the introduction, the Royal Chemical Institute. So that's where all the chemists and chemical engineers sort of go to, engineers and mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, the Physics Society, right? So you have all these professional societies, but not really focused on batteries, right? And then you have all of these funded organizations through the Australian Research Council or a cooperative research centre, right? So these are all funded for 4 to 5 years, and then they move on, right? And so this hasn't got any longevity. So it's only a finite, limited time organization. So we wanted something that could feed into these funded organizations, also from the professional societies, such that we could actually pull it all together. And then there's a recycling institute and an energy storage alliance, right? So this is more on photovoltaics. And so we thought we need a battery society. We need a society which will sort of be a proponent for batteries in Australia, link the miners, link the people who actually install batteries, and have a sort of a very wide context in them. And so this is what we thought. We would create a society that would be able to link all the scientists and engineers, all the people who are doing research that are funded by organizations, the federal government, and some of the other organizations that look at a specific area in the battery value chain, for example, recycling, right? And so we're an organization that is a not-for-profit, so we're not-for-profit, and we want to get basically people talking together so we can build Australia's battery research and development ecosystem. So this is basically our vision. We want to bring all the people together, from academia, policymakers, public, to build a battery industry sector. And we want to be a place where people can network, can develop their organizations, and one of the things we're really getting a little bit of interest in is this idea of certification as well. But we're not going down that path, but there are sort of movement in this space as well. So in order to do this, we actually needed sponsors. So we had two big sponsors. They're our foundational sponsors. So Phillips, Ormond, Fitzpatrick, they do intellectual property. So they have been sponsoring us throughout the years. And Anton Parr, which you may have heard of, they do instrumentation, right? So they do a whole bunch of instrumentation, which is quite pertinent to battery research and development. So both these organizations have been with us and been supporting us to grow and to actually increase our uptake of people. So we started looking at where we're positioned across Australia, and so that you've got these international organizations like the Chemical Society, the International Society of Electrochemistry, multinational organizations, predominantly in Europe, Alistor and Battery 2030, national organizations, a few in the US, in France, you've got the National Battery Research Institute, the Faraday Institution, and so we're somewhere in here. We're a national network of battery-based researchers and industry, as well as government. Okay, and so we're sort of getting towards the role where we're actually doing a little bit more on trying to sort of share job ads and things like this as well. So let's have a look at the lithium-ion battery value chain. So just to note, we don't do just lithium-ion batteries. We do have members who work in the lead-acid battery space and the zinc bromides and the flow batteries as well. So I'm just going to focus in on the lithium-ion battery chain because I think that's sort of very pertinent to the discussions you've been having today. So I hope you might have seen this before, but this is a sort of a wheel that was developed by CSIRO, where they look at the battery value chain. So everything from mining, refining, battery materials, cell manufacture, pack assembly, recycling, and testing and integration too. I think they're missing one here on integration. So actually using it in the field. But you can sort of see it's a very complex process of everything from chemists, engineers, electrical engineers, policymakers, certifications, the whole works, right? And so the question is, how much of that do we capture? How much of that do we don't capture? Where are the industry in this space? Where's the research in this space? So you had a question for Dr. Reddy about minerals. So if you look at Australia in terms of minerals, you can sort of see all the mines in Australia that are doing lithium-ion battery bits and pieces, right? Everything from copper, aluminium, nickel, cobalt, manganese, iron, lithium, right? So these are processing facilities in blue and mines in red. And so we are very rich in natural resources for the battery value chain. And so our next step is actually we mine it and we ship it across overseas. We want to actually do more here in Australia. We want to process electrodes, which we're starting to do, but also to build cells. And we're very good at the other end as well, at integration. So building big batteries and integrating it into the grid, for example. And so it's just that middle bit that we'd like to capture a little bit more of, or at least have some sovereign capability. So here's another sort of view at the moment. This number it changes. I've read places where it says 60%, but it depends on where you look at it. So yeah, we produce probably the largest amount of lithium for the world at the moment. Manganese, nickel, lithium, cobalt, natural graphite, right? And so you've got the whole battery value chain. That's not including copper. We do a lot of copper as well, and iron as well, right? So you can basically collect all the materials and build in Australia or build it in Indonesia for that matter, right? Take the material from Australia, build it in Indonesia. It works really nicely in this region. So this is sort of the minerals. And then when you go to the other end of the spectrum, we actually have test beds. So we had the largest battery in the world for a long time, the 100 megawatt battery in Jamestown. So that was the largest battery, I think, for a couple of years. It's going so well that they've expanded that now. So I think it's now increased in capacity, so it can actually hold a lot more. They've made, I think, a profit in the second or third year of running, right? So in a sense, it was a demonstration that it actually works. It actually works really well, and you can make a lot of money out of it, right? And so all of a sudden, there's a a lot more batteries coming online across Australia and across the world. And we've got some big ones coming online as well. So big batteries. All right, so this is, I guess, a talking point, right? So we do, as I said before, we have the minerals, we know how to use the batteries, we just don't make them in Australia. And that's what we're trying to do, trying to encourage that whole going from here to here, all in Australia, if we can, right? Or at least as much as we can, and then integrate with our sort of international partners. All right. By the way, this area does get hot, and there's a wind generation station just to the left of this. Okay, so let's have a little bit more look at Australia's capabilities. There's a question in chat. I might just wait till the end of the presentation if that's okay. But I have a look. Okay, sorry. Yep, I'll wait till the end of the presentation and go through that. So, yeah, in terms of research, if I just do a Web of Science search string, lithium-ion batteries, you can sort of see this is Web of Science, so it does do patents a little bit as well as publications, but predominantly publications. You've got the China, US, South Korea, Japan, Germany, India, and then Australia. So we're actually producing, in terms of publications, we're number 7 in the world in lithium-ion batteries, right? And so we've got a strong research focus there, and you can drill down a little bit more on, if you look at lithium-ion batteries Australia and then subject areas, you can sort of see a lot of material science, a lot of chemistry, physical, energy and fuels, and then it goes on there as well, right? But you can sort of see it's not necessarily all applied. The engineering comes in down here a little bit. It's a lot of sort of materials concepts, things like this, nanoscience, right? You can drill a little bit further down and look at the universities and research centres that are sort of prevalent here. So you've got University of Wollongong, which is a big one, University of New South Wales, where I am. I think there's a lot of researchers who have joint appointments with the Chinese Academy of Sciences, or there are with Australia as well. UTS, there's also a big group there, University of Queensland, Deakin University, University of Sydney and Monash as well. And this is ANSTO, the Australian Nuclear Science and Technology Organisation. And then you can sort of see some of the researchers here, Professor Liu, Professor Dao, we've got Professor Gao, Professor Wang, right? Professor Forsyth, right? So lots of researchers in this space who are active in this area. Both these two researchers have retired, so I'm hoping so you're going to see hopefully a change of names and a few new names coming in there as well. All right, and that you can sort of see we have a very rich culture of research in Australia. We have close to 30 universities in Australia. A lot of them do battery-based research or research in the value chain. Here are some of them. We also have national organizations like the CSIRO, who do a big battery big player in battery research, and they are not named here, so I'm not sure how much this actually works. I would have thought CSIRO is actually quite big in that space, and they are, but they also do a lot more industrial research. So the universities tend to focus not always on more fundamental research. CSIRO is more focused on the industrial research, so they do that translation side of things. Versus various organizations that are national organizations that do battery research, so Defence, for obvious reasons, National Measurement Institute, ANSTO, so Nuclear Science and Engineering, they do battery research, as well as synchrotron, Australian synchrotron. So hopefully you've heard of some of these universities and some of these organizations. So what we've also done in the past sort of 5 to 10 years, if not a little bit earlier than that, actually, there's one that I'm missing here, is the Australian Research Council, which is our national funding body, also recognizes that there is opportunity to have big groups together. So rather than individualized grants, they have larger grants, which is a consortium. So for example, Store Energy is a training center. So it does training for students, but also does translation of research, right? So we know that there'll be a need for new battery scientists and engineers in the field, And so this provides a training avenue for them to train up in the lab and then go into the field. We also have a research hub for integrated energy storage solutions. So that's linking storage with solar, PV, solar, wind, things like this. We have a micro recycling research hub, recycling batteries and electronic wastes, right? And so this is maybe half a dozen to a dozen researchers at various institutes, universities, and typically industrial partners, half a dozen to a dozen industrial partners working together for certain goals, right? In research, in development, in training. Okay. And so these are underpinned by the Department of Education, Skills and Employment. They've also got a Trailblazer program, which is a new program that's just been announced on order of about 250 million for the next couple of years, and that's predominantly industry-based support. So about 100 million from industry and 100 million from university sector to actually grow various areas, and one of them is batteries or energy storage. In addition to these sort of government-based organizations, we have more of an independent-based organization. It's called a Cooperative Research Center. It's administered by the government, but it's industry money going in to a pot. And essentially that industry money then is used by researchers and industry to do research and development. And so they have a future battery industries organization, and that's more on the sort of mining to electrode level development. Okay, and so you can sort of see there's a whole bunch of different mechanisms to support battery research and development and translation of that research and development as well, based on, you've seen the research capabilities and the research outputs, so people want to take it from that to the next level. All right, and so this is I've sort of been talking about this, and this is, it's a relatively older report, so it's about 4 years old. You can sort of see here this whole idea of translation, right? So where you go from mine concentrate, so when you mine the material, you refine it, you produce it, you make the battery cell, and you make it into a pack, right? And you sell it. And you can sort of see here, we've got in terms of Australia, we've got a large fraction of this part of the world. Going downstream, we pretty much have nothing, right? A very small percentage. Right, so refining, we do a lot more than now. So this is 2018, but we do a lot more here. This area is growing, and this area at the moment is it looks like there's some really interesting things happening soon, right? And we do, rather than this, and so these two areas are where we sort of we need to grow a bit more. So we are heading towards these two directions, but we need to do a bit more here from our perspective. And you can sort of see the value add at each point, right? So even if we get a small percentage of this, can be bigger than that, right? When you think about it, if you get 5% of this, it's going to be much bigger than that total value there, right? So yeah, it's quite exciting, but that's where we're sort of heading towards from an Australian perspective, really trying to push this part of that. And you know, there's various things happening to make that happen. And this is quite interesting here. So this is from one of our foundational sponsors, POF. They did a really interesting survey, and they sort of said that patenting activity in electricity storage, so energy storage, has increased specifically for lithium-ion batteries, you know, phenomenally, right? The amount of patents that have been generated for lithium-ion batteries are increasing. So you can sort of see these are how many registered patents from different companies. So the international patent files, right? So it's saying that from 2000 to 2018, you had about a 7 times increase in the number of patents being filed, right? So the number of patents being filed, it's only a small jurisdiction in this case. Well, it's a big jurisdiction, but anyway, there's a huge increase. And so they're saying it's about a 14% faster growth in battery-related patents versus any other types of patents. So the battery patents are just outpacing all other patents, right? People are seeing that this is a viable area to patent in, and we should do that to protect yourself, because you could actually make a lot of funds out of this, right? So this is so they did a patent search, right? And so this is a classification for energy storage batteries, I believe it is. And you can sort of see Australia had about 5,000 patents, and the global number between those two, so over those 20 years, was about 600,000, and we had about 6,000, say, patents, right? 1%. If you look at the last 6 years or thereabouts, that's dropped down to 0.5%, right? So we have this really interesting problem or challenge or something like this, where we're publishing lots, yeah, and we're publishing lots of exciting research, but we're not patenting this, and nor are we potentially translating this, right? And so you can sort of see the challenge for Australia is to actually flip that around, or not flip that around, but to actually increase the patenting, increasing the translation ideally as well. Right, and so if you look at this, this is a fantastic, this is from the European Patent Office. So by the way, I should go back. This is EP, European Patent, I think European Provisional Patents from that are filed. So you can sort of see this is from the European Patent Office. So the number of international patents filed related to battery technologies, and you can sort of see battery developments at a cell level, integration into equipment, thermal management, other battery developments. And you can sort of see here, the bigger the ball, the larger the number of patents. Right. Yeah. So, you know, back in 2000, you're looking at maybe all up 1,000 patents, and now you're looking at much more. All right. So this is good. And what I'd like to show you is we are actually getting a lot of interest. There's a lot of companies out there now in Australia, from startups to established, to miners, to integrators, to a whole range of people who are interested in actually doing this and taking advantage of this value chain, right? And you can sort of see there's a few miners in there, as well as some people doing more than that. And they're not all based in Australia or all doing work in Australia. A lot of them are actually overseas as well, doing research overseas or doing mining or developing overseas as well. Okay. So yeah, quite exciting. And there's a lot of appetite for this at the moment. With the government is supporting this at various levels, right? So you can sort of see here, Austrade is doing a great job in attracting investment in Australia. So they've developed the lithium-ion battery chain. They're sort of showcasing opportunities for development in Australia and investment in Australia. We have the federal government looking at low emissions technology statements and trying to understand and highlight technologies that they want to support. So hydrogen, batteries, things like this. We have some of the highest rooftop solar in the world. We have, in my state, New South Wales, we have a decarbonisation innovation hub. We have a national battery strategy from the federal government. We have battery precincts being developed or idealized. So there's lots of ways the government is helping this. Also, not only from that, but also from the commercial side. So encouraging people to get solar and batteries, encouraging people to get electric vehicles. The whole works. Even though we have to wait for electric vehicles, there's encouragement there, and we're having a bit of a crisis at the moment. Well, not crisis, but the electricity prices are going up, and so there's more emphasis on trying to make more things in Australia, trying to sort of keep our electricity and energy prices down, which batteries can solve in part, or assist in solving in part. So you can sort of see, I hope I've shown you the landscape, right? So in terms of research, in terms of translation, in terms of government. So what do we see our role at the Australian Battery Society? Basically to bring researchers, industry and government together, to grow the battery industry in Australia, and to educate the importance, in the public, in the importance of Australian batteries, right? Well, why we need Australian batteries and why we need this to be done now and not in 10 years' time. Okay, so our activities, when we started off, we have a constitution, we had a website you can go to, and I'll share that link in a minute. We've submitted papers to technology investment. So we've submitted the battery approach to a roadmap discussion paper. We've submitted a paper to an IP report. So IP Australia, so Intellectual Property Australia does a battery report. and we submitted our thoughts to that. We've had networking events in May, in October last year. We haven't had one this year as we're planning for IMLB. We're planning, so IMLB is going to be next week, and we're going to actually do a STEM event, so an event for high school students, science, technology, engineering, and maths. So we have 60 high school students coming along to that. And we've also given out awards. So we have the Australian Battery Society Energy Renaissance, which was sponsoring the award, Innovator Award. We've given that out to 9 applicants, and we have one who's got the Innovator Award. So we're giving young scientists, whether they're in industry or whether they're in university, the opportunity to apply for these awards, and they get, I think, $2,500 to go to a conference. I think one of them wants to go to the Tesla Gigafactory in Germany. Another one wants to go to different factories and look at what they do as well. Yeah, and so this was one of the first things we sort of developed, which is these Innovator Awards, and we had Energy Renaissance, which is a battery company who sponsored us for this. Yeah, and that in a nutshell is the Battery Society, and sort of a bit of a landscape of what's happening in Australia at the moment in time. That's it from me. If you've got questions, I would be happy to answer them.